Here, Jay Pat from Blog a Bull, SB Nation, and today's Fast Break, and here with Ricky O'Donnell, SB Nation, Blog a Bull, and we are here to talk about the end. Well, we're not quite at the end yet, but basically the Bull season is dead because they cannot make the playoffs. They were eliminated over the weekend, thank God, by the Pacers. Destroyed the Nets, so they are done. They're playing some meaningless games. They won last night. Jimmy Butler did some more leadering. The sweet double-double as the point guard. And they got one more game against the Sixers. So I'm sure that'll be a whole heck of a lot of fun. We're just going to kind of talk about everything that went wrong, because a lot sure as hell did go wrong this year with the Bulls. And that we'll try to look ahead, see what they can do to try to get back into being whether either good next year or whether we want them to rebuild and do something real crazy or anything like that. So I guess to start, I'll ask you, Ricky, what do you think was the biggest problem this year? Or, I mean, obviously there were a lot of problems. So what would you say was your biggest takeaway from what went wrong this year?
I would say my biggest takeaway from what went wrong this year is just that whatever, the Bulls were under the assumption of coming into the year, that they thought that this roster was, a worthy contender, at least in the Eastern Conference, bringing back the exact same roster, only changing Nazir Mohammed for Bobby Portis. My biggest takeaway is that, the Bulls should be embarrassed with the fact that they thought that this was a worthy roster. Obviously, they had a lot of injuries, but let's be honest, this team had a lot of problems last year. It did win a few more games last season. How many games did they win last season? Did they get to 50?
They were 50 and 32 last year, I'm pretty sure.
So they won, let's say, probably 8 more games than they won this season. But, last year, I remember I was at that Game 6 against the Cavs when they were without Kyrie Irving. They were without Kevin Love. And the way the Bulls just rolled over in that game was really emblematic of their effort the entire season. They were very hot and cold throughout the year, and this team, I think, exhibited a lot of the exact same problems. Management thought that switching out Tom Thibodeau, the coach with the 6th highest winning percentage in NBA history, for Fred Hoiberg would magically fix everything that ails this team. And in hindsight, that is just an embarrassing opinion. And, the Bulls, it played out throughout the year that this team just clearly was not good enough, was not talented enough. And, it was proven night and night again this season. Yeah,
definitely. And the part about just it's almost like the gall of the front office to think that just changing the coach and going from – I criticized Tibbs. At the time, I was fine with him leaving. Still not willing to say that firing him was a complete mistake. I mean, in hindsight, it definitely looks like it was. But, I mean, to expect them to go from an established coach like that to a rookie head coach, and to think that that would be the only fix, and to turn that into a championship roster was just – it's almost unbelievable. They literally did not change anything besides draft Bobby Portis. And they thought that all these guys, all the younger guys would take huge step forwards. They thought that they would stay more healthy with Fred Hoiberg, and that obviously turned into a huge joke. I think there were more injuries this year than there ever were before. And Fred had the growing pains. I'm sure many people expected Fred to not be perfect, and he was not good. I mean, I don't think anybody objective could say Fred Hoiberg did a good job this year. It's not all his fault. There were a lot of problems that were not outside of his control. It didn't help that Jimmy called him out right away. But, I mean, who knows the exact details of that? Maybe he deserved to be called out like that. I don't know. We'll talk about Jimmy and all that stuff in a bit, but I mean, what's your take on the job Fred did this year?
Yeah, that's interesting. I want to spin this back at you, and I'd rather push it forward than look back, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
So how confident are you that Fred Hoiberg can still be a good NBA head coach for the Chicago Bulls? Give me a percentage, 100% being you are fully invested, fully confident in Fred Hoiberg, getting this team back to, NBA contention, let's say, and 0% thinking they should can his ass right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not down to fire him right now. I know some people want to do that, and he's just, you see him this year, and he just didn't do a good job, and he showed a lot of weaknesses in areas, and that, he can never get better. I mean, I'm not going to say that. There were a lot of problems going back to last year that who knows if Tibbs was around that he would have fixed. I know we don't want to look back, but if we're going to put a percentage on it, I don't know, maybe 50-50 at this point. He was a solid coach in college. He showed that he was able to get some success at Iowa State. Obviously, that does not really mean anything. You throw that out. He clearly struggled with this locker room and all these veteran players and all these egos. He clearly I don't know if he didn't understand it or if he just kind of underestimated what he was walking into, and he just kind of walked into it almost naive and overconfident, and then he gets hit with Butler calling him out, and you have Powell, veteran guy, you have Derek, you have Joakim, you have Taj, you have all these veteran guys, and they just kind of caved all in on him. And you have some of the goofy stuff with like the Animal House stuff and the Dumb and Dumber, and that's almost kind of stuff that that's like stuff a college coach would do. Like that's stuff that's kind of funny if you want to be a college coach, but you're talking about professionals and grown men, and you're showing them Dumb and Dumber clips when the season's basically dead, and it's hard to take a guy seriously doing that. So I'm not completely done with the guy. I give him next year. I mean, if they don't, I guess it depends on what direction they take next year. If they show better teamwork, if he shows better competence as a coach, he's fine. If next year's another disaster, I mean, I think you could can him after next year. So, I don't know, I guess 50-50 and maybe a little less than that.
Yeah, I was going to give it about 60-40. I was pretty high on Hoiberg when the Bulls hired him. I thought that, a shift to, more of a 4-out scheme, a little more up-tempo scheme was just a really natural fit for the Bulls. The problem is that they didn't accommodate Hoiberg with any changes of the roster, and they really set him up to fail, basically all the way from the start of the season. But the thing I worry about with Hoiberg, my big thing is that I don't know if he has the respect of the players. And that was something Iowa State, the players really respected him. They really went to bat for him, but it's a completely different ballgame handling pros. And I go back to last night's game story from Nick Friedel, and there was, Jimmy played in that game against the Pelicans. He played, 29 minutes. He took over at the end. Bulls win, whatever. I'm not watching.
No one cares. I did not watch the second.
But Jimmy apparently re-entered that game late. And I'm just going to read a little part of Friedel's gamer. He says, Butler's intentions are good, but with so many other problems floating around the team heading into the summer, both he and Hoiberg made a needless risk on Monday, especially when Butler came back into the game late. Even Hoiberg acknowledged that he had some second thoughts after inserting Butler back into the contest. Now here's Hoiberg's quote. Yeah, there was, Hoiberg admitted, but he wanted back in there, and he wanted to go back in a big way, and he kept looking at me. So I caved. I put him back in. It's like, dude, who's the coach here? Who's running the show? You
exactly. Yeah,
I like Hoiberg. I'm not one of these guys who wants to bury Hoiberg right now, but dude, I mean, that is just very reminiscent of Mark Trestman, which the players didn't respect him. And I think that was a big problem with the team. So now to spin it forward with the Bulls, it's like, dude, if you don't clearly show Jimmy and anyone else what's up, that you're the guy who's running the show here, this team is just going to be set up to fail from day one, because the number one job of a head coach, in my opinion, is to get everyone to buy into what he's preaching, everyone to buy into the team concept, and everyone to buy into their roles. I would say that all three of those things were major problems for the Bulls this year. And really, this is probably going to be a hot take column for me coming in pretty soon, but I think the number one thing the Bulls need to do next year is iron out their roles. This year, you had so many different guys who, it just seemed like people were playing for themselves rather than for the team. A lot of that is because there was no clear hierarchy on the team. There was no who's the number one option. Powell probably thinks he's the number one option. Jimmy thinks he's the number one option. Derek thinks he's the number one option. Well, what about Nico? Nico's someone who, when playing to his potential, he could potentially be the number two option on a good team. Instead, if he's shooting well, he ends up being one of the focal points of the offense. If he's shooting poorly, he ends up playing 17 minutes a game. It just isn't conducive to winning basketball. And I think, looking at it next season, no matter what the Bulls do this offseason, the number one option on the team has to be Butler offensively. The number two option should be Mirotic. The number three option should be Rose. And then everything else from there can fall into place. Then you're not looking for a center who wants to score, because you have your three scorers right there. You want a center who plays defense. That other sort of wing next to Jimmy, that's a guy who doesn't need the ball in his hands. He's someone who can stretch a defense with a catch and shoot jump shot, someone who can defend other big wings. I think it's definitely of premium importance that they stagger Rose and Jimmy's minutes, because both of those guys are really good isolation scorers. They both like to go isolation. Part of the reason they like to go isolation is because they're good isolation scorers, like we said. So, the fact that I get what Hoiberg was trying to do and thinking, if this team is ever going to play to its potential, these two guys have to learn to play well off each other. That is still very important, I think. But at the same time, you have guys who like to hold the ball, who like to stop the ball, and who are good isolation scorers. So their minutes absolutely need to be divvied up. And to me, they need to empower Mirotic. And we've seen Mirotic play pretty well this last half of the season. I'm sure there's a lot of people in the bloggable comments right now that are thinking I'm crazy for saying Mirotic should
I was going to say number two
option on this team. But to me, I think he's talented enough, and you're never going to know what you have unless you empower him. So, that's what I would do. And, without a clear, hierarchy of roles, no basketball team is going to be successful. I think the Bulls proved that this year.
Yeah, definitely made a lot to take in there. Made a lot of great points. The Rose Butler stuff is obviously going to be something that's going to be talked about all summer, and it's arguably, I guess, the biggest storyline.
So let's talk about it. Do you think Jimmy Butler and Derrick Rose can play well together? Do you still believe in Jimmy and Derrick?
Yeah, I guess I still have some outside hope. One of the things I was thinking about was the idea of trading Rose. We'll have that. We can have that discussion a little bit in terms of them playing together. I think they could still do. They are really talented, and I guess if they do work together and figure it out, they still can. But the fit in general is just kind of weird. Like you talked about the isolation stuff, the ball in the hands. I think you can make that kind of situation work. You see, like in Toronto, Kyle Lowry and DeRozan is a popular comparison people like to make. But one big issue is that neither Rose or Butler really shoot threes very well, or many of them. So when you have two isolation, high usage, ball dominant players like that, and neither of them can really shoot threes, I think that kind of hurts them, because when Rose moves off the ball, he's almost useless. I know at times he did a little better cutting, and you can kind of create your own spacing even if you don't shoot threes by cutting and doing stuff like that. And I feel like Jimmy kind of got away from his really good off-ball play this year too. So I feel like if they're going to make it work, that's something they have to do, because again, they don't really shoot threes that well. Butler was better last year, but not that good this year. So, I think that's obviously an issue. And then, another issue between the two is them playing. Defense is a whole other thing, because Rose was terrible defensively, and even Butler took a step back. And then in terms of, I guess, them two playing Hoiberg together as well, like Hoiberg talks about pushing pace and all that stuff. So that doesn't help with the three-point shooting either. But in terms of pushing pace, something I've mentioned is Butler can't be playing 40 minutes a night and taking this huge burden defensively, taking a huge burden offensively, and then pushing the pace all the time. And so, the staggering of minutes makes sense, but then if you're going to be staggering Rose and Butler, I feel like that's just going to equal Butler playing monster minutes again. And it's just a really difficult situation to figure out right now, and it's going to be tough. I'm not going to say that they cannot figure it out together, but I'm losing faith by the day every time I watch them play.
Yeah, we're for sure on the same page here. It should work, I think. It should, but I no longer believe that it's going to. Could it? Sure. But I'm not going to ride for the D-Rose Jimmy backcourt anymore in terms of thinking it's going to work, certainly. The shooting is the first thing that comes to mind. Butler's three-point shot really fell off this year. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I want to say
30% maybe.
I want to say he was 36 last year and 30 this year. So, that's probably only the difference of, not a ton of threes going in versus going out, but it makes a big difference when you're talking about pairing him with a total non-shooter like Rose. I don't think Rose is capable of being a good three-point shooter, even though Rose's shooting numbers were much better in the second half of the season, particularly from three-point range. To me, they've just got to find a way to have some sort of off-ball cutting cohesion. It's something that they have not been able to establish with each other since they've been paired together. I don't know, man. I feel like it should work, but it just doesn't.
It just seems like too often one of them will take the ball.
But
yeah, I know. And it just seems like one of them will take the ball. They'll do a pick and roll with Powell, and the other one, and then all the other two players will just stand around. And it's too often it devolves into that. And there was all this talk about how Hoiberg would be so helpful with these guys because there'll be all this movement and all this supposed freedom. But I know some people have talked about how almost that freedom has not really helped them, just because I guess they're not totally sure what to do and they just don't have the chemistry, and it devolves into basically basic pick and rolls or isolations all the time. It just doesn't look like it's theoretically supposed to look like or whatever. And it clearly needs a lot of work, and who knows if it's ever going to happen.
Yeah, the other big thing this year, I think, is just the way the defense fell. The defense, I'm going to count it off live on the air right now in terms of defensive rating. Do you know what they were offhand, so I don't have to count this off?
Overall?
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13,
They were
14,
like 14.
15. So they were 15.
Yeah.
You're dead in the middle of the league. Offensively, only 5 teams were worse offensively, and they're in the middle of the pack defensively. So, I think it's easy to point to the absence of Joakim Noah and talk about how, his injury coincided with the fall of the Bulls defense. I really respect the hell out of Taj Gibson. He's one of my favorite athletes ever. I think that he's clearly on the downslope of his career. He'd still be, a rotational piece, I think, but his best days are likely behind him because of the idiotic way in which this franchise routinely handles injuries.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, how does this defense improve? Do you think that Fred Hoiberg can lead a good defensive team? Because he never led a good defensive team in college. And sort of what's the magic fix according to Bulls_J in terms of fixing the Bulls defense?
Yeah, I did not know. I know a friend of the program, Stephen No, Hungarian Jordan, I think wrote an article, I think for The Athletic, about Hoiberg's defense. He might have, or for blog, well, I can't remember, but how he's never run a good defense. And even they supposedly have a defensive assistant with Boylan around. That clearly didn't help. And I mean, the Bulls weren't their final defensive numbers were 15th, 14th, whatever you said they were.
Very inflated by a good start.
Very, very inflated by the good start, which I was never convinced that was legit. I remember when they were winning those games early in the year and their defense looked good. Like, I was skeptical the entire time. And then once Noah went down, it was basically just downhill from there. And I'm pretty sure they were one of the worst defensive teams in the league over the second half of the year. And Noah's injury definitely played a part and just kind of all cascaded down from there. Like, Rose's effort was bad. Powell's effort was miserable. Etuan Moore missing games didn't help. Taj not being healthy didn't help. So in terms of fixing it, I mean, that kind of goes into the Joakim Noah question. Like, do you bring him back? Even though he's not going to fix the whole thing. He's going to be, 30, 31 years old. The cap's going up. He's clearly a leader, key defensive part, even though he has declined offense. His offense has gone into the drain. But if he comes back, he should help the defense. But they need more than that. I mean, I feel like they need another wing defender to help. Jimmy Etuan is solid, but, I mean, when you're playing guys like Dunleavy and Doug big minutes and Mirotic, I mean, they're not good enough defenders. Then you have Powell. I mean, I guess Felicio could maybe be a nice defensive part. I mean, he was the starting center last night, and they got torched by a terrible Pelicans team. I mean, the Felicio love is hilarious in its own right, but that's a whole nother conversation. I mean, I feel like they need to get a young defensive center in their rim protector that could come in and anchor the defense. And I have no idea who that's going to be. I mean, you look at the guys who are available, they're not going to get Hassan Whiteside. And I mean, you look, do they go after like Festus Ezeli? He's got his own knee problems that I feel like the Warriors want to keep him around. He's restricted free agent. I haven't looked at the center list.
You know what this means, man? Their best option is Felicio. So with that reaction, I'm thinking that you immediately dismissed that.
Well, I mean, I feel like Felicio he could be a solid 4th or 5th big next year. He could be backup center, totally fine with that. Like, he's shown some really nice things with his energy, his athleticism. He's finishing around the basket.
Okay, so then you have Portis, you have Mirotic, you have Gibson. Those 3 guys are on the team, unless they're going to move Gibson. Are they going to move Mirotic? I guess, anything sort of in the realm of possibilities.
I would consider moving Taj. Like, I've always loved Taj. I've always thought he should play more than Boozer. I thought he should have started over Boozer that last year or two. But, I mean, just the injuries with him, it's every year there's something. He's fighting through injuries. He's going to be 30 or 31, I think, next year. I still think you could probably get something decent for him. So, if this team's going to, I don't know about blow it up, but if this team's going to look to the future and retool.
So you want to move Taj, and then you want to replace Taj, ideally with a defensive-leaning center.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to move Taj, but I think it's something that should be considered. Sure. And if you get a young defensive center, I'm not totally sure that answer. If you have him, you have Nico, you have Portis, you have Felicio. That's at least a decent start for a young core of big men that hopefully could develop into something good. And then you add a 5th guy in there as well for depth purposes or whatever. But I just feel like, and the Noah question is still there. I mean, I would love to have Noah back on some type of hometown discount, which I do not think that will happen, considering how he kind of got screwed by Fred this year. It seems laughable. He's going to want the money. He's got one big contract left. Maybe, I guess, but so I don't know. Yeah. So I would be totally fine if they just basically went younger and like I said, tried to sign a young athletic center, and they roll with that. Portis.
Dude, I think your young athletic center is Felicio.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're going to be able to do too much of that. So.
Yeah, right. I don't know what else. Yeah, I have to look again.
So here's the thing. The Bulls, they keep making the same fucking mistakes year after year, decade after decade. I think that's something that's just been proven time and time again, whether it's the way they handle injuries, the way they sign free agents. They just fuck up in the same spectacular ways they have fucked up for the previous 2 decades since Michael Jordan left town. One thing they always do, and friend of the program, Kevin Farragon, has harped on this from time to time, is that they compound their own mistakes by signing older free agents to big money contracts when they already have someone better suited for the task already on the team. They did it with Ben Wallace when they had Tyson Chandler. They did it with Carlos Boozer when they had Taj Gibson. They did it with Pau Gasol when they had Gibson and Mirotic. Now, I wonder if everyone's looking at this, the Bulls are going to have maybe $20 million if they let Gasol and Noah go, though. If you're going to keep Etuan, it won't be that much. Wonder what they're going to spend that little bit of free agent money on. It's not as much as people think it is because everyone's going to have so much money.
Yeah.
I don't know if Felicio is a great player. I don't. I would be lying if I said I felt a lot of conviction in it. I do know that he's been one of the only exciting parts of the team this entire season. I do know that they plucked this guy from Brazil, 23 years old. The only background thing I know about him is that he came to the United States when he was like a junior in high school and signed with Oregon. And he didn't academically qualify, or there were some professionalism, things, and he didn't qualify under NCAA guidelines. But now the Bulls never carry a 15th man. They never do that. No, they did it this whole year with Felicio and did not play him. When he started playing, he was immediately good. He's not the most athletic, but he's pretty athletic just because he's young and he's got fresh legs at this point. He isn't a back-to-the-basket scorer, but you don't need a back-to-the-basket scorer. You need someone who's going to set good picks. He sets good picks. You need someone who's going to be active defensively. He's active defensively. To me, I would probably roll with that guy because I feel like, A, you'll never know how good he is if you don't give him a chance. Yeah. So, I mean, if you got your 4 big men, you're either going to go with Portis. So I think Mirotic has to start at the 4. So then who are you going to pair him with? You're either going to pair him with Gibson, or you're going to pair him with Portis. Portis, I don't think is going to be able to defend at the level.
He's got a long way to go.
He's got a long way to go defensively. Okay. So then you could pair him with Gibson. Maybe Taj has earned the right to be a starter after all these years. But, I mean, to me, give me Felicio. I want Felicio to start.
Oh, man.
Why not?
I mean, I guess, if we're looking at next year as basically almost a transition year, I mean, I don't think anybody should have any misconceptions about next season being, I mean, if you really want to do
first year that we're not going to be able to talk ourselves into the Bulls as an Eastern Conference contender, because we did even this season coming into it.
Oh yeah, we did absolutely. I think I had them in high 40s for wins. So at least
I had them second in the East, I believe, like a big fucking idiot.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people did. It's not like we were the only ones. Well, maybe not whatever. Anyways, I mean, I guess it's not the craziest thing in the world. I would probably like to bring in somebody else. Another name I just came up with in my head was Jan Mahinmi from the Pacers.
Jan Mahinmi would be good. Biyombo would be good. I mean, if they could get one of those guys, I'd be totally in.
Yeah.
But then at that point, I almost feel like
that's when you have to trade Taj, I think.
Right. I'd rather Felicio be the 4th big man than the 5th big man. Another name that I still wouldn't mind is Costa Koufos. Koufos had a pretty good reputation defensively before he got to Sacramento. Sacramento has Boogie. They invested a high lottery pick in Willie Cauley-Stein. He only makes $7 million a year, which in the new cap is going to be the equivalent to $4 or $5 million a year. He's still 7 or 28 next season. I would take a flyer on Koufos if they could get him. The Bulls should have made that trade during the season. I think that would have been a highly beneficial trade for a number of reasons. They didn't do it because Gar Forman's an idiot. And now if they can get Koufos again, I would take a chance on Koufos because he's the type of defensive-leaning big man you really need. And if not Koufos, and if I wouldn't want to sign Mahinmi or Biyombo to huge contracts.
Oh yeah, definitely not. And and that's the thing also with this offseason. I have no idea what to expect. I mean, it could just be absolutely wild with all this money coming in. So a guy
Durant domino is going to change everything.
Yeah.
Depending on where Durant goes, that's going to set into motion the rest of the summer, I think.
Right. So that's going to be a huge question mark, which leads the Bulls to have more question marks. You have no idea how this money is going to be spent out because there's going to be all these players, and this free agency class isn't that good to begin with. So you're going to have a bunch of teams with a ton of money spending money on these second-tier guys, and just who knows what that's going to turn. Like, I mean, we talk about a guy on our own team, Noah. Like, somebody might just be willing to give Noah a whole shit ton of money just because, hey, they need a center. He's a leader. He can play defense, and here's $15 million. Like, I have no idea what to expect. So that'll definitely be interesting for sure.
What else you want to talk about?
Well, going back to the Rose thing, and this is something that I was talking about or kind of discussing on Twitter. I was thinking about, I think anything should be on the table, and we could bring Butler into this as well. Would you shop either of them this summer? Like, would you try to trade Rose?
All right, let's do this.
Yeah.
This is a good discussion. So I'm going to name some offers for Jimmy Butler, and you tell me if you would accept them.
Let's do it.
Victor Oladipo in the 10th pick in the draft for Jimmy Butler. You going to take that?
Probably not.
But your hesitation makes me think that you would at least entertain it.
I would probably need another really good young player from Orlando.
So you're going to want like Aaron Gordon?
Yeah, it would be like Oladipo, Aaron Gordon in the 10th pick, because in this.
There's no way they would do that.
Oh, exactly. Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, so then would you do Aaron Gordon in the 10th pick?
No. Would
you do Hazonia in the 10th pick?
Probably not.
Okay, so you're just not about the Orlando trade then. Let's go to Boston.
I feel like I would need a couple of those guys in the pick, because the 10th pick, I feel like in this draft, I mean, you know more about the draft than I do. This is a weaker draft. I mean, you never know. It could turn out to be great. It seems like the 10th pick in this draft probably won't be great. And then Oladipo is good, but he's about to get a huge extension. So, like, I feel like those two pieces together are nice for Jimmy Butler, who's a bona fide all-star, who's locked into a nice contract with the cap going up. I think that's just not going to do it.
Okay, Boston. Let's say Marcus Smart and the 3rd pick from the Nets.
I feel like if it's the Boston one, I want one of the top two.
Yeah, agreed. That's how I would be the same way. So then let's do this. Jay Crowder, Marcus Smart, and the Mavs pick. It's like 17 or 16.
Probably not. Like, I feel like if I'm trading with the Celtics, I'm getting Ingram or Simmons, and then one of their decent, like Bradley, Smart, or what? Maybe not Smart. Maybe like I'm getting Ingram or Simmons out of it, and then one or two of their decent, like whatever, rotation players.
Okay. Is there any offer that you think realistically you would accept for Jimmy Butler? I mean, to me, if you're getting Crowder, Smart, and the 15th pick, so I think Crowder's like 75% of Jimmy Butler. Jimmy averages 21 a game. Crowder averages like 15 a game. He's like, I think he's 75% as good as Jimmy Butler, as ridiculous as that sounds. And then it goes to, how much do you believe in Smart and how much do you think you could catch in on that draft pick? I guess I would consider that package, but it definitely doesn't bowl me over.
Oh, no. And I feel like if you're getting Smart, you're probably have to trade Rose too, right? I mean,
those two might be able to play together, but they're both non-shooters.
I don't know. That doesn't excite me that much.
So what do you want with Jimmy Butler here?
I mean, like I said, if the Celtics are calling, I want one of the top 2 picks, and I want one at least if one of the top 2 picks, and then at least one of their decent players. It doesn't have to be Crowder. Crowder's really good. Whether it's, I don't know, Bradley, because I think they'll probably have to make.
There's no way you're going to get that.
Right, I know, exactly. So that's why I don't
think
see
they would give you Ben Simmons or Brandon Ingram for Jimmy Butler. I really don't.
I don't think so either.
Especially with Jimmy's knee injuries this year.
Yeah, I agree.
That's the other thing moving forward. How healthy is Jimmy going to be? If Jimmy's going to be, banged up, might be time to cut the cord on him from the Bulls' perspective. If you think he can get back to being healthy, there's never been a time in the NBA where two-way wings are more valuable. Right. You could easily see Butler swinging between the 2 and the 4, depending on the matchup. And that would probably be a player the Bulls want to hold on to. So,
yeah, in my mind, if I'm trading Jimmy, I'm basically going full-out rebuild. And if I want that, I want like a super young player that I feel really good about being. Like,
I would trade him for Brandon Ingram.
Yeah,
I'd trade him for
sure.
Ingram.
I would absolutely take a chance on that. Like in that case, you're basically going full rebuild. You're blowing it up. Fine, that's fine. But I don't want to trade Butler for like a couple nice parts, and you're not totally rebuilding and don't really have a bona fide. I mean, at that point, I guess you're probably just tanking. But I don't know. I'd rather, if I'm going to tank, I want to at least have that one really good stud.
And then D Rose, are you so? I mean, the Bulls aren't going to get anything for D Rose, right?
I mean, maybe some team will give like a late. I mean, any team.
First.
I was eyeing the Sixers if they're desperate. They have their whole whatever the hell they're doing in Philadelphia. They're talking about getting better quickly. I mean, not that getting Derrick Rose is going to do that, but they clearly need a point guard. They want to play fast. Rose can play fast sometimes, I guess, I don't know. I mean, they're going to have a ton of cap space. They have some assets. They're obviously not going to trade any of their great assets, but even if you get like a late first or something, and then maybe some type of crap player back, I don't know. You're obviously my ideal, I guess, Rose trade would be you're trading him for the cap space, and then maybe getting something else on top of that, and then you're using that cap space to either somehow look into a free agent signing, because the Bulls really get big free agents, or using that extra cap space to sign maybe two other players that could make your roster deeper and more well-rounded to fit with Hoiberg or whatever the hell you want to call it. I guess that's my ideal Rose trade if you do it. I'm not totally like sold on the Bulls have to trade Rose this summer, but when you look at it, I mean, it's a decent time to think about it because he is going to he's in the last year of his deal. I still can't rely on him. He played the most games this year than he has in forever, I'm pretty sure. And he looked good at times. Like he had the 2-month stretch where he was efficient. He was also terrible defensively during that stretch, and it didn't lead to wins. I'm pretty sure I looked at the team on-off. Not that on-off means everything because Tony Snell says what up there, but I'm pretty sure when Rose was off the court, the Bulls had like their best on-court net rating, which is pretty galling for someone that's supposed to be an impact player. And I mean, it would be really tough to obviously to see him go and to give up on him, considering what he meant to the franchise in his first few years and how good he was. But there's a point where you just can't hold to that ideal of Derrick Rose anymore, and that you might have to move on. And I feel like the front office is probably scared to trade him, and then he blows up in their face, and that's why I don't think that'll happen. But I mean, are you going to pay him when he becomes a free agent?
Well, I mean, so, are you going to pay him? That I feel like then you're sort of assuming the market when I would say that we have no idea what the market for Derrick Rose is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, we do not. That's definitely a fair point. But I feel like if he even has another decent season where he plays 60 to 70 games, he put up this year like 17 and 6. And if his defense improves a little bit, like what if he like improves marginally on this? Like again, the cap's going up to like 108, 110. So that's going to be even more cap space. I feel like some team desperate to make a splash will throw a lot of money at Derrick Rose and hoping that he can.
I don't know. Will they? Like, especially after next year, are you assuming if he like, how's Rose going to play? Like, is Rose?
Right, that's what I'm saying.
If he did in the second half of this season, if he does that and you're the Bulls, do you still even want him?
Right, that's the problem. Because what if he does have like a pretty good year, but not great year, and the Bulls are just okay? Like, can you really be like, all right, we're going to go give Derrick a huge contract now and be at the whims of his body again? Like, can you really – I feel like that's just going nowhere. I don't know. It's tough because, I mean, I would love – obviously, I think most Bulls fans would love to see Derrick turn it around again and become a great player again. But like I said, at some point, you just have to look at it realistically.
Yeah. So to me, in the draft, they definitely want to target a point guard.
Yes. So you're Mr. Draft. What point guard should they be targeting?
Mr. Draft is my father. Yeah. No, but I mean, so like, what pick are they going to have here? They're probably going to have. Are we thinking like? So they're going to be 42 and 40, assuming they beat the Sixers. Maybe I shouldn't even make that assumption. Yeah. But they're going to have either.
They'll probably be 14.
13 or 14. Yeah. All right. So I mean, there's a lot of different guys that they could be in play there. I got this dude number 3 in the draft. It's the French kid. I can't even say his name because I haven't heard.
Yeah,
Timo.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Timothy. I don't know.
I assume that he's going to jump up. But right now, he is projected to sort of go around 14, where the Bulls could pick. He's a 6'7" wing, 7'3" wingspan, shoots threes, handles the ball. It still feels like international prospects are sort of a market inefficiency, right? Like, Giannis went 15. Gobert went 27. Schroeder, where'd he go? Early 20s, I think. Like
something like that, I think, yeah.
And all those are probably the 3 best players in that draft. You know what I mean? Like, I guess Nerlens is in there as well, but like, it's still a market inefficiency to me with the international players. He would be a guy that I would definitely look at, even though he's a wing for the Bulls. Another guy I would look at is Denzel Valentine from Michigan State. He's 22 years old. I think the book's pretty much out on him. He's a really complete offensive player. He's someone who could play point guard on offense. And even if he's in a secondary facilitator role, I think that he would just be someone who can really help a winning team. He's a fantastic and willing passer. He's a great shooter. Buddy Hield got all this attention for being, the best shooter since Steph. I think Buddy Hield shot 46% and Denzel Valentine shot 44% from 3, both on a very high volume number of attempts. And then Valentine's a supplementary ball handler too, which the Bulls desperately need. He's also slow as fuck. I mean, I saw him play against Northwestern in person. He was not faster than the Northwestern. He couldn't even take those dudes off the dribble. To me, you want an NBA comparison for Valentine. I'm thinking maybe like Jared Dudley with point guard skills. I don't know. He's sort of a unique player. I think he'll be good, though. He has a high floor, I would say.
But I guess on that note, then, like, are you going to take him and then you're going to have him and Doug on the same? Like, can he play defense at all? Like, because the Bulls need defense. Like, they need a defensive wing. They need more shooting. They need a point guard. They need a young big man. So, like, you take
which is why Doug was a bad pick, because he doesn't do anything but shoot. Whereas Valentine, averaged 7 assists a game. Valentine probably had more assists in 1 month than Doug had in 4 years of an all-time great career in creating. You know what I mean? Like, so I mean, part of that falls on Doug to sort of diversify his game a little bit. But the guy I wanted to talk about is Wade Baldwin, a point guard from Vanderbilt. He's 6'2". He's got a 6'10" wingspan, so he's enormously long. Jesus. He's someone who you think would be able to play alongside Rose. A lot of teams are going with 2 point guard looks, get some more ball handling on the floor. I think that would be beneficial for the Bulls to do, to sort of get a look at something like that. Next year, you could play Baldwin alongside Rose or in place of Rose when Rose is out of the game. He's a 40% three-point shooter on a pretty low-volume number of attempts, so I don't think you're looking at him as a quote-unquote shooter. But he's a big athletic kid, sort of in maybe the George Hill mold, someone who could just be like a solid point guard for you. I don't know if he's going to be outstanding, but someone who could provide a little stability and provide a defensive presence out of the point guard position. I don't know. That's someone who I would look at for the Bulls, 14th pick. And to me, point guard is the ideal spot for them to choose if someone falls into their lap. And
they clearly they haven't developed a point guard since Rose got hurt. They took Teague the 1 year, and that was an utter disaster. And since then, they've been psyched. I mean, they have Aaron Brooks was a disaster this year. Kirk was washed up. They clearly desperately need to develop a young point guard, whether it's backing up Rose if they keep him around, or to develop into the point guard of the future. Are there any other point guards that'd be worth? I know there's like Demetrius Jackson, Tyler Ulis. Like, are either of those guys?
Those are the other 2 guys. I mean, Ulis is my all-time favorite player, so I'm a little biased there. But I don't know if I would take Ulis because, like, I don't want to take someone who's going to be a really good backup with a lottery pick. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, you want a starter there. And Ulis was Defensive Player of the Year in the SEC, which is pretty nuts. Especially, he was SEC Player of the Year and SEC Defensive Player of the Year in the season that was supposed to be a season-long coronation for Ben Simmons. And instead, Tyler Ulis just sort of, did that his own way. So, I don't know, man. I think that you probably don't want Demetrius Jackson because he's too small. He's very athletic, but he's too small. He didn't shoot the ball from 3 well enough. Probably don't want Ulis because he's too small.
Are there any other point guard? I mean, obviously there's the other guys that are done. He'll go high. Jamal Murray's like a combo guard, right? He'll go high.
Yeah.
And anybody else? I'm not as up on the college guys as you, but I don't remember anybody else. Any of the other
DeJounte Murray from Washington is 6'5". Melo Trimble, maybe. Trimble had a really rough end of the year.
Seems like he'd be picking him that high would be bad.
Maybe Gary Payton the second. He's going to be 24 next year, but he's 6'3", really long arms, great defensive player. He can't shoot, but he does a little bit of everything else. So it's tough. I think Baldwin would
seems like Baldwin's the guy in there that area, and he would work well with the shooting ability. I feel like they need a point guard that can shoot threes would really be helpful. So
I don't know if he's going to be a stud though. I think he's got a little bit of a high floor, which is important. That would be like trying to hit a double.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't seem like there's any home run guys that they can get in this draft.
You could take my boy Diallo from Kansas. He's a center, Chuk Diallo. He didn't play at all this year, but I do know that. There's a few other guys in this draft I definitely think of higher ceilings than Baldwin, but I think that Baldwin has a pretty high floor. He would fit what the team's looking for in terms of someone who could play alongside Rose and someone who could eventually supplant him as the starter. And he just does a little bit of everything. He doesn't take a lot off the table, which I think is something that would be appealing to the Bulls. So like Patrick Beverly is sort of another comparison for him. Like if the Bulls could trade for Patrick Beverly,
somebody tweeted at me a Derrick Rose trade proposal that was like Patrick Beverly, was Beverly, KJ McDaniels, and Corey Brewer for Rose. I hate Corey Brewer. He's garbage. I would do the Rose for. If it actually worked on the trade machine, if I wouldn't for like KJ McDaniels and Patrick Beverly, that'd be awesome. Obviously, that trade would never happen, but Patrick Beverly as a 3-and-D point guard seems like would work. If Jimmy's gonna take like ball handling threes as well. But.
All right, let's answer some of these questions. We don't want this run too long.
Let's do that.
The mystery man himself, Bulls blogger. No one's ever seen his face. He asked a really, really fire question. He said that this is a call out of me. He said that you wrote before the year that this is a make or break season for Derrick Rose. Well, which one was it? I'm going to give a cop out answer.
I knew it.
Fire. And I will say that this year was good enough to delay that one more season.
Yeah, I mean, it is really tough. We kind of touched on this. Like he started so bad, but that was clearly the broken face played a role in that. Because he couldn't make anything around the rim and he couldn't shoot at all. So like you give him a little bit of a pass for that, but then he was really efficient there for those 2 months. His effort was also terrible on the defensive end, and the passing wasn't as good as he'd like. But it wasn't his overall just wasn't terrible. So it was perfectly mediocre. And like you said, it almost kind of just kick it down the road one more year. Like, all right, well, if maybe he does it again we'll see what he does next year. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not surprised you said that, and I would almost kind of agree with that as well. Like he didn't really make anything, and I don't think he really broke anything except he broke his face. But I would.
Why don't you pick one of these questions and you try to answer it?
All right. Let's see what else we got here.
There's some good ones to choose from.
Let's see. Okay, so here's one. And this was actually something I wanted to touch on as well, kind of in terms of Jimmy and his attempts at leadership this year. This is from Matthew Guadagno. I've noticed this at Art Vandalay 91. He says, "Do you think JB is taking a shot at Rose when he keeps saying playing point guard isn't hard? Strange remarks." And that just kind of plays into what do you make of Jimmy's attempts at leadership this year, and what do you think the deal is with him? I still defend Jimmy, and he's still really good, obviously, but he is corny as hell, and some of the stuff he's been saying is it's really bizarre.
Yeah, I don't really mind it. The first time Jimmy said something, I didn't really mind it. I know everyone got up in arms about it. It's not a good look. That's what everyone says. Like, what the fuck does that mean? I didn't mind it because the rest of the team was playing like such assholes. They were playing like bitches. They were terrible. So to me, someone needed to come in and shake shit up a little bit and be like, yo, this is unacceptable. We did this shit last season. You saw how it ended. That was under Thibodeau. This year's supposed to be different, and it's the exact same shit. And I think that that's basically what Jimmy was trying to say. So I don't really mind him commandeering sort of the leadership approach for this team because he was the best player. Because was Noah out at that point? I think Noah was out at that point.
I think that was. I feel like it was before. That might have been after the first injury, but before he was done for the year. I can't remember.
Well, you know, it was just like the way the season was dovetailing. Someone needed to say something. Maybe it wakes him up. And instead, now you're looking back at that moment as sort of the moment when it all came apart. I feel like that's how it's going to be seen in hindsight.
Right.
And really, it was fucking broken well before Jimmy Butler said that. And, you know, when Hoiberg's not going to hold anyone accountable, when Hoiberg's not going to shake anything up, like someone's got to do it. And so Jimmy tried to do it himself. With that being said, I think that Jimmy's quote-unquote leadership is not as big of a deal as Jimmy's stubbornness. Jimmy seems very stubborn. There was that report in the Zach Lowe article that he went to Fred Hoiberg and he asked to put in some sets that the Bulls used, under Tom Thibodeau. You could tell that those are isolation-based sets. Jimmy likes to hold the ball, and we've seen that throughout the year. He's good at it. That's part of the reason he likes to do it. And when the rest of the team is a bunch of idiots who's not able to do anything, you know, I don't blame him for wanting to do everything himself. But at the same time, like, your best player is going to have to buy in. And if your best player is not buying in, then it's just broken. And, you know, I think the coach goes before the star player. But at a certain point, you know, is this team going to be ready to contend by the time, you know, Butler's still in his prime? And I think that that's really the give and take at the heart of the offseason.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people like to paint Jimmy as some like villain. Now, I think he's done some dumb crap. I think some of the stuff he said is annoying and it's kind of backfired on him. I don't think he's a lost cause or anything, which is why I would want such a big trade package like we talked about earlier. And it seems like a lot of people have pointed to him like as it's his fault, like Hoy ball didn't work and stuff like blah, blah, blah. We see he holds the ball too much. I think some of the times the isolation stuff he does do is annoying when he'll just pound the ball 20 feet from the basket and throw up a step back jumper. That's obviously garbage. Like you shouldn't be doing that all the time. But it's not like Hoyball was working a ton when he was out either. I mean, when he was out, the Bulls were absolute garbage. So like to say that like Jimmy just completely ruined Hoyball and all that, I think is some people are going way too far with that. I still think he can. I hope he takes this season as a learning experience for him. I hope that he can. I don't mind him trying to be the leader. I think he's trying too hard at times. Maybe it'll come a little more naturally moving forward. And I just hope the season's kind of humbled him a bit and that he can hopefully lead the team better moving forward if he does not get traded.
Any other questions here you wanna pick out?
So here's a couple we could go to, both with kind of more with the front office or and the coaching staff. This is from Colin Spence, C Spence 10 on Twitter. He says, if Gar Forman actually gets fired, which probably will not happen, but it seems like he's at least on the hot seat, how much do you think would actually change? Because I'm assuming Paxton's not going anywhere because Jerry loves him. And then, like, if Forman left, so if there's something like crazy and Forman left, do you think Fred would still go? Like, who would you want to see coach the team, I guess? I mean, that's kind of looking way ahead, but
so I don't think Fred's going anywhere because he signed him to a 5-year deal. Is the entirety of that contract guaranteed? I assume it is. I
would assume at least most of it is, if not all of it. I would guess.
All right, so Fred's not going anywhere. They're not paying.
I agree with that. Yeah. So, but it does seem like Gar is. So with some of the stuff that's come out.
I would say if he does not get fired, if Gar doesn't get fired, then he's in for a do or die season.
Yeah, I agree with that because it does seem like with some of the stuff that Casey was putting out in his season postmortem that there's kind of some leaks getting planted, kind of setting up for Gar to take the fall. I mean, Cowley had that column a couple months ago that was talking about how Gar and Pax have kind of had some disagreements. The Casey column talked about how it was basically Gar's call not to trade Powell, and Gar was the one who talked about how Powell was a core piece, and now look, Powell's probably not going to be back. So it seems like there is some setup here looking ahead that Gar could probably not take the fall this summer, but if this offseason does not go well, and if next season they don't either develop players like they want, because I don't know how much better the actual record will be depending on what they do in the offseason, but that if the next season does not go how they plan it, that Gar will be fired next season.
That is a terrible way to enter this offseason because then you're looking for short-term – you're looking for shortcuts instead of long-term fixes. And when that happens, you're just not going to be successful. Like, they're already blowing it before they even get a chance to blow it, basically. Just if that's their mindset heading into this offseason, that, we got to get the 5 seed in the East. Otherwise, it's like, no, dude, build something sustainable. Build something that works long-term. quit making these dumbass shortcuts, like signing old guys who are, on the wrong end of their primes, who, aren't going to fit the way Fred wants to play. I just don't really have much faith in the Bulls front office to evaluate talent. But I will say that they found Felicio, who's the starting center next year. Mark it down, Felicio. They found Etuan, who I would love to re-sign. I think, if he's going to get $7-8 million a year, I'd re-sign Etuan for that. I really like the way he compliments both Jimmy and Rose.
He's a really solid player.
Both Jimmy and Rose have gone to bat for Etuan in terms of saying, that they want him in the lineup. That's a great sign. That means that, you would think he complements their games well because he shoots and he defends. And if the guys say it themselves, then I think that that counts too. And they got Justin Holiday in a second-round pick for Kirk Heinrich. I would say that was a great trade. I know Casey floated in his postmortem that people on the team didn't like that. Like, whatever, dude. That was a great trade. I'm all in on that trade. I think Holiday's pretty good. But I've been mostly watching college basketball. So if Holiday sucks, you can let me know. But I was still taking my team for a million.
I honestly haven't been watching that much Bulls either, to tell you the truth. But from what I've seen, I think Holiday just looks okay at times because he's not Tony Snell.
He's better than Snell, right?
Probably.
Your hesitation scares me.
I think he shows a pulse, which Snell does not do half the time. His career numbers are garbage. He shot better from three this year. I think he shot like 37. He's shooting 37% with the Bulls only. He was terrible with the Hawks. He's 27, so it's not like he's actually young. He's kind of sloppy. I don't know. I mean, he's just another guy, basically. He's pretty athletic. He can shoot from three decently. I wouldn't say he's good. I don't mind the trade. I like the trade when it happened. Clearly, maybe it might have had some problems in the locker room, but I mean, whatever, man.
The locker room fucking sucks anyway.
It was garbage anyway. So,
you want to fix the locker room, start winning. You want to start winning, get better players.
You trade Kirk Heinrich you get a passable, youngish player for Kirk Heinrich and a second-round pick, which, I mean, I know some people say second-round picks don't mean shit. You can use those in other ways than drafting a guy. To get that and a passable player for Kirk Heinrich, who's useless at this point, besides, I guess, his locker room intangibles, that's not a bad trade. And I don't think Holiday is good. I think he's fine to have on your team next year at like $1 million. I think he's guaranteed to have as a third guard, maybe like a fourth or fifth guard.
Fourth wing.
Yeah, fine. Yeah. That's fine. Like, I'm totally fine with that. So
is it like dog in the burning house fine, or is it like actually fine?
No, like if he's a guy that
I'm joking.
Yeah, I don't want him playing like 20 minutes a night. But.
So then you have Etuan Moore, who they just dug up. You have Justin Holiday, who was actually a pretty good maneuver for them at the bottom of the roster. You have Felicio, future NBA All-Star. You have Bobby Portis, who I still believe in, even though he had sort of an uneven rookie season. I still think Bobby Portis is going to be good. You have sort of a young-ish nucleus here that they kind of just developed overnight, which is pretty impressive, I think. That isn't something to discount immediately. I know that I wrote that this year. I wrote the most critical thing I've ever written in my life about the Bulls. That basically they're just hopeless. The front office has no conviction in their own ability to evaluate talent. Well, they found these four young guys who are all pretty good. I'll roll with those four young guys. Give me those four guys. That's why it comes back to this idea in my head that when you look at the team, I think a lot of fans would agree that you can sort of see the rough outline of a good team on the roster when you look at the roster.
It definitely is. It's definitely nice to have that, at least those guys towards the end of your bench. A lot of people say, oh, your bench guys don't matter. But, like, it's nice to have those guys there who can come in and play if there's injuries. And if they can possibly turn into bigger parts of you. So I agree with you with that part, for sure.
So then if you have, if people agree that you could look at this roster and talk yourself into it in a sense, how are you going to get the most out of it? Because Tom Thibodeau couldn't do it, and he was an objectively great coach. Fred Hoiberg is a complete change of direction from Thibodeau's approach, and he wasn't able to do it this year either. So I think what that starts with is empowering the right people, is defining roles, and is taking a chance on some of these younger players to be guys who you can roll with long term. I don't know if that's going to get them to be the third seed in the East, or if that's going to get them to, challenge the Cavs in the East. Because anything they're going to do, get them to challenge the Cavs in the East. And, I don't like the idea that I think a lot of the Twitter eggs have that you have to go the Sixers route to contend in the NBA. I don't think you need to tank. I think that the Bulls are in a position where they can do a quick rebuild and make themselves pretty good. To do that, figure out some roles, make some good value signings, and play with some goddamn urgency and some intensity. Like I do think that they could do it without a full teardown.
Yeah, I think they could too as well. Like I don't have that much faith in. I say they found some of these younger guys. I don't have that much faith in this current front office to get the right, like, not major free agents, but like the next key guys that can kind of help build you back up. But I mean, I definitely see where you're coming. I don't think they need to totally tank. Like, I like the idea of them retooling and then moving forward with that. And I mean, I don't know if that's. I mean, because right now it's so tough. You have the Golden State Warriors who are in line to basically run the league for years to come. And I mean, the Durant thing is going to be huge. Where he goes could be huge. Will be huge. I mean, the Cavs are. Who knows what happens with the Cavs with them? But I mean, even if the Bulls get to a point where they're a really damn good team that can consistently be in the top 4 of the East, and then with the right other moves can possibly, if they get lucky, they get to the finals. I mean, I can live with that as long as I enjoy watching them play. Because I mean, it was a lot of people are whatever the title or bust thing, and I mean, I kind of get it. I'm not going to totally argue against those people, but as long as they're consistently really, really good, and what they kind of have been the last few years up until now, of course. But I mean, I can live with that if they retool correctly and are consistently a really good upper echelon East team with the possibility of things breaking right with certain moves, certain things happening, and then possibly going to the finals and winning it all. I think that'd be fine.
Do we want to take any more? Or do we want to wrap this up?
We can go a couple more questions and just hopefully not go too long. One of them was from one of our own writers from the program. I believe it was VJ.
VJ, I met him.
He had a question. He just had a question about if they do keep Rose around, whatever. I believe he said something about if Aaron Brooks is gone, who would be a decent backup point guard? I mean, we kind of talked about with the draft. Well, we just assume if they draft a point guard, he'll be the backup. Do you think there's a veteran they could bring in? Should they go after a guy like Jeremy Lin? Something like that. The point guard market is not very strong in free agency this year. I think I just looked at it.
There's a million point guards, right? Everyone's a point guard.
Yeah.
So go find the next Patrick Beverly in Ukraine. You already found Etuan Moore. You found Felicio. Everyone's a point guard. Point guard's the easiest position to find. I don't think you need to recycle someone who has obvious deficiencies as a player like Jeremy Lin, like Aaron Brooks. Just go find someone. Either draft a guy like Wade Baldwin or go somewhere else and find someone. They exist. They're out there. Go get them.
Fair enough. Good enough for me. I agree with that. Like I said, the free agent market is not great for like known commodities. I definitely think they should draft one, and I'd be fine with the draft pick being at the backup. If you want to bring a third point guard in, that could be Etuan possibly. Go find someone.
I like Etuan more at the 2.
I agree with that. I feel like Etuan is like emergency point guard if you need it. And then obviously we have Jimmy Butler, self-proclaimed. It's easy to play point guard.
Point guard. It's not that hard, dude. That's a great answer for everything, though. Whenever anyone asks you,
it's not that hard.
Whatever. It's not that hard.
All right, the last question we have here is it's coming from @CatMurner Kanye West. This is about Doug McDermott, and I wanted to talk about Doug. We haven't really touched on him because I don't really know what to make of Doug. He just says, why does Doug's defense suck so hard? He can dunk on guys, so he's not that unathletic. Is he just dumb as hell? So, like,
I love that question, first of all, because no one ever calls a white guy dumb. And he could be. He's the coach's son. He's had great tutoring his entire life. How is he so bad at defense? Your coach's son, man. You should be able to defend.
Right. And he's so bad. And like, I know some people just say, oh, he improved.
He's scared. That's the problem.
It just seems like his court awareness is absolutely awful. He's scared. And like,
if you're scared, get a dog.
He's athletic in terms of like jumping, and he's also 6'8". So I hope he's able to dunk. He's freaking 6'8", but he can't move laterally. His awareness is absolutely atrocious. He falls down half the time when he's running around trying to guard somebody. So like in terms of like being basketball IQ, knowing how to play good NBA team defense.
No, he's dumb.
Yeah, he's absolutely. Dumb. So that leads me into my next point. Like, what is the ceiling of Doug McDermott, NBA player?
Kind of low.
He obviously showed that he can shoot at a high level in the NBA this year, albeit inconsistently. I mean, he had several monster games, but then he had a bunch of games where he just didn't disappear, he did disappear. So, I guess if he played Terrence Ross in the Raptors every game, he'd be an MVP. But so, I just don't know what to make of him. Because they gave up so much for him, and they need him to be. I feel like they need him to be at least a decent piece of the roster moving forward. I don't know. I still think he could be maybe a 15 to 20 minute a game guy, I guess. But I feel like you need to play him with the right people around him. You need to basically work to get him shots all the time. He's only out there to shoot because he does some nice things off the dribble. He's a really good cutter. He burned a lot of people with backdoors. I'll give him that. But there's just nothing else going on there. So I just don't know if he'll ever really be anything more than.
I still think he could help the team. So at this point, I don't even think you worry about whether or not he will live up to the draft hype.
Right, yeah.
He's not going to. He's never going to make that trade worthwhile to me. Even if he ended up being Kyle Korver, let's say he followed Kyle Korver's career step for step from here on out, he would still not be worth the trade. I will never forgive the Bulls for the fact that they cost me Zach LaVine. I wanted Zach LaVine so bad. He's already better than Wiggins, for Christ's sake.
Oh, is that a hot take?
Oh, that's a hot take. Yeah, that's a major hot take. But he is. The Bulls, they fucked up that trade 100%.
They did.
No doubt about it. However, can Doug McDermott still help the team? I think he can still help the team. First of all, are you going to play him at the 3 or the 4? I think that's one thing you need to figure out. The Bulls played Doug at the 3 throughout this year because they had this glut in the front court of guys, but maybe they don't have a glut in the front court anymore. Maybe now you can get away with Doug at the 4. And especially the way everything's, downsizing, I think Doug would have a better chance to guard 4s than he would have to guard 3s. Secondly, he just needs to diversify his game a little bit because I think he showed for sure he can shoot the hell out of the ball. There's no doubt about that. His thing is volume. Do not take 3 threes a game. You're not helping anyone if you're taking 4 threes a game. You need to take 6, 7, 8 threes a game. If you go 0 for 5, don't end 0 for 5. Try to end 3 for 8 is what I would say. Yeah. Otherwise, you're not doing anything on the court. So he's got to get that volume up. The only way he gets the volume up is if he gets more confident in moving without the ball from the 3-point line. Some of that's athleticism based in terms of getting open looks. But he's just got to figure that type of thing out. And so I think that because he's shown he can shoot the ball so well, because he's got a little bit of an off the dribble game and a floater game, I just think he needs to diversify his game a little bit. He's going to be in the league for a long time. He's going to be someone who, is probably going to be in the league 6, 7 years from now, is my guess. We've seen guys like JJ Redick and Kyle Korver get better as their careers move on. And I think that most likely the Bulls are looking at a really, really long-term project with Doug. It's funny to call him a project because, 4-year college 25, player. Yeah. But I think that, his best ball might be when he's 30. I still think he could, help the team. He could be a useful guy. But he's never going to be Zach LaVine.
Yeah, no, him, LaVine, Rodney Hood looks awesome, other than his 1 of 11 performance last night, which cost the Jazz a playoff spot. But yeah, they definitely screwed that trade up, and I kind of agree with you. I'm not going to bury Doug, because he does have an elite NBA skill. I mean, there's plenty of guys that can shoot that don't make it in the NBA, but he's just got to be. If he can just figure out the defense enough, if he can figure out the other parts besides shooting enough, he can definitely help the team in a 15 to 20 minute, I feel like, per game capacity. I will always worry about him against. I mean, I feel like there were some games this year where you would watch him and you could just see how overmatched he was. Like the Warriors games were embarrassing for him, and I think there was a game against the Heat when they got blitzed in the fourth quarter. He just couldn't do anything, and that'll happen with him just because I guess it's what he is. But I don't know. Yeah, I'm not gonna bury Doug McDermott. I was against the trade when it happened. I'm still not a big fan of him, but I think he can at least be good enough where he can help your team, I guess, moving forward. We'll see. There's just so many questions with this entire team in general, and we've hit on most of that. I'm pretty sure that's most of the questions that we've got. I think it's some of the other ones we see here are kind of stuff we've talked about already. So, I mean, basically, I guess we could finish with on some closing notes, what do you see happening this offseason?
What do you want to happen?
Yeah, well, okay, what do you want? Yeah, what do you want to happen?
Let's start with you, Bulls, Jay.
What would I want to happen? I mean, I would love to see the front office turnover. That's not going to happen. What do I realistically think will happen? Realistically, I would like to see them trade Mike Dunleavy for cap space, trade Tony Snell. I looked at this the other day, and I think they could get to close to $30 million in cap space if they dump Dunleavy, they dump Snell, they'll have their pick, and then if they just kind of let the free agents go, that leaves you close to $30 million. You can use that to re-sign Etuan possibly look to re-sign Noah. I don't think he'll be back because I don't think he'll take the contract the Bulls offer him. So in that case, if you're left with say $20 million after re-signing Etuan, I would like to see them sign another wing and then another decent big man. I want to see them draft a point guard and just go into next year with hopefully a deeper roster. Hopefully Jimmy and Rose work together this summer, work things out, try to get better. Like I said, I don't want them to trade Rose, but I think it's something they should look at. And if they did do it, I wouldn't be upset as long as it was for the right things. Like I said earlier, cap space to help you improve. But I think realistically, just adding maybe re-signing more and then adding one or two really solid pieces and then drafting a point guard seems like the most realistic way they can go about this.
Yeah, so ideally, I would like to see them. So are Biyombo and Mahimi both free agents?
I believe so. Hold on, let me take a look right now. Free agents.
All right, well, so here's what I'm going to say with this. I love Taj. It might be time for Taj to go. It's like, Taj, I love Taj so much that I want him to get the fuck out of here. To go on to a happier situation.
Seriously, I would almost like to trade him just to give him, hopefully trade into a good opportunity. Like, it's almost a shame they couldn't trade him to Toronto, and he could help them because he's so much better than Luis Scola's bum ass, and he can help Toronto maybe beat Cleveland. Like, that's a damn shame that didn't happen.
So I would get rid of Taj. Love you, Taj, but this is us. It's not you. You're too good for this mess. I get rid of Taj. So then your front court is Portis, Mirotic, Felicio. I would either trade for Kufos at $7 million a year. He's only got a few years left. I think that's probably the move you want to make. I would trade for Kufos because he's someone who's not going to block Felicio. I can't believe I'm saying this. Felicio.
This is some fire Felicio takes here.
Let's roll with it. Why not? Why not, man? This is what they need to do.
By the way,
last thing I want the Bulls to do is to go into this year trying to save Gar Forman's fucking job. Don't do that. Who cares? That's not what's important here. Build something sustainable that can grow.
Mahinmi and Biyombo are both unrestricted free agents. Or Biyombo's got a player option, which he will almost certainly decline because it's like $2 or $3 million, I think. And then Mahinmi is legit unrestricted free agent. So
I want those guys for like $10 million for 2 or 3 seasons. And nothing more than that. I would be
totally fine if you do that, and then maybe you go after a guy like Alan Crabb, throw an offer sheet at Alan Crabb, throw an offer at Kent Bazemore, something like that.
Okay, I was going to say Bazemore. I would love Crabb, but I feel like as a restricted free agent,
I feel like Portland's keeping him. You have to overpay. Yeah,
you're going to have to way overpay.
I agree.
They should have just drafted him in the first place.
They should have.
I would probably go after Bazemore.
I agree.
The thing is, you're probably not going to get Bazemore for cheap.
No.
Because everyone needs wings, and there's not a lot of them.
Right.
And Bazemore's one of them. One of the young ones. So are you going to pay $15 million a year for Bazemore? Are you going to pay $18 million a year for Bazemore?
No.
I would consider it. I think.
I mean, if you're doing that, you're probably saying goodbye. I mean, I don't think you could do that. I mean, I guess if you do trade Taj and open up the cap space, I guess you could sign. You might be able to do all three if you're looking at like 35, 36 million in cap space.
Right, how about this?
You can try to fit.
Forget the center. We don't even need the center.
That's because you're on Team Felicio.
I'm on Team Cristiano.
I want another center, damn it.
Well, yeah. So, like, they need a center, obviously. But if you get everything else in line, so, like, all right, so bring in Bazemore. Then I would just try to trade for Kufos. Like, I would just try to trade for a guy like that who's more of a stopgap than the answer. because even if they give Mahimi or Biombo a lot of money, they're not going to be the answer.
Right. Yeah.
That's ridiculous to think that those guys are going to be, I mean, maybe Biombo could be. He's still young. He's like 24, isn't he?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, maybe Biombo could be. But yeah, I mean, I would try to get a two-way wing. Kempe is more. Give me Etwan back to be my super sub. Empower Nico, number 2 option. That's a hot take for sure, right?
It is.
Nico, number 2. And then yeah, give me Felicio with a bigger role, consistent minutes. Give me a young point guard. Give me Wade Baldwin to back up D Rose or play alongside him, and goddamn, just like have some pride.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, they gotta buy in. They all gotta buy in. Jimmy's gotta buy in. They all gotta buy in. They gotta play harder, play with more intensity, and hopefully with these guys. Like, I mean, that's if you're adding all that we just talked about together. I mean, that's a youngish, more athletic, it seems like well-rounded roster. And that's not a team that's gonna win anything, but maybe that's a team that could at least be better, could be a little more fun to watch. Maybe if things bake right, they end up being a little better. I mean, like I said, nobody should have any ideas about winning a championship next year. Next year should be more of a transition.
Reboot it.
Exactly. No, just don't think about championship. Don't have those expectations.
But
just try. They could still be good though next year. Because I mean, I hate making the injury excuse. There were a lot of injuries. That was crap. But if they do at least start transitioning toward a younger, more athletic, if they actually are going to play more up tempo and buy into Hoy ball or play Hoy ball or whatever, next year could be at least a decent amount of fun and not a complete misery like this year was.
Most important thing, next year, no short-term fixes to safeguard Foreman's ass. Long term. You got to be thinking long term.
Yeah. Young guys. I want younger.
All right. So I'm good.
Yeah, I think that's basically it. So the season was miserable, definitely. It's going to be an interesting offseason for sure, and we can probably do another one of these maybe after the draft or after free agency, after we see what the hell they do. But it'll be interesting for sure. So it's good talk. It was good to get some of this off my chest. I needed it.
All right. Sounds good. Until we do it again.
Yep. Take it easy.
Later.